Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I'm here today at the James D. Julia Auction House up in Maine, taking a look at some of the guns in their upcoming auction in March of 2015. Now, among several of the major collections in this auction is the gun collection of none other than Elmer Keith. And of all the guns that he had, probably the most recognizable is revolver number 5. In fact, it's probably the most recognizable and famous custom revolver ever made by anybody. The backstory of this thing is Elmer Keith was a rancher and cowboy, basically, in the northwest U.S. He lived in Oregon, he lived in Idaho, Montana, states up in the area. And he started writing for American Rifleman in the early 1920s, and he was talking about primarily long-range and heavy-duty six-gun shooting. Well, by about 1927, his stories had been out there, and he had a fellow who wrote to him a bit dubious about the reality of some of these long-range shooting stories that Keith had published. This man was named Harold Croft, and he struck up a correspondence with Elmer Keith and ended up coming out to visit in 1928. And according to Keith, he brought a bag of six guns with him, basically to test Keith's stories. Were they true or not? And they were true. Keith was, in fact, a fantastic long-range marksman with a revolver. Well, among the other guns that Croft had brought were 4 of his own experimental custom guns. He'd been trying to build a nice, lightweight, pocket carry sort of single-action army, and he'd done a lot of tweaking with things like Bisley grip frames and different components. He showed all these guns to Keith, and Keith, of course, had many years of experience shooting single-action armies at this point. And Keith really took a huge liking to a lot of the ideas that Croft had put together. So over the next couple of months, by 1929, Keith actually commissioned what he called revolver number 5. This was because Croft had named his revolvers number 1 through 4. And what Keith did was take the ideas from Croft and from Keith's own experience and some other gunsmiths and put them together into what is widely regarded as the best single-action army custom revolver ever made. So why don't we go ahead and bring the camera in and take a look at some of the details here. We'll talk about what exactly he did on this gun and look at some of this engraving as well. All right, so if you were Elmer Keith, what would you do to make the perfect single-action army? Well, the answer is a bunch of things. First off, the most significant and visible difference is the grip frame here. What he did was start with a Bisley grip frame, but then cut it longer. This made for a grip frame that allowed you to get a bit higher hold on the gun, and Keith really thought this was the epitome of the perfect grip shape for the single-action army. So part Bisley, but then that was connected with the front strap and the trigger guard from a regular single-action army. The hammer is a combination of parts. It's a wide Bisley hammer spur that was welded onto a regular hammer. The sights here have also been modified. He made this up as a flat top revolver, which Colt occasionally did, but he extended that flat top back farther towards the hammer to give a little bit more sight radius, and then he put a windage-adjustable rear sight on it. It's funny, in his article on this gun, which he published in 1929 called The Last Word, he describes all sorts of trouble he went through trying to zero single-action armies with particularly hot loads by doing things like bracing the front sight against something and then banging on it with a hammer to bend it left or right. So one of the things he really wanted was this adjustable sight to properly zero the gun. He came up with a new style of cylinder pin here. The problem was, on a typical single-action army, recoil would tend to cause this pin to walk out, and when it didn't walk out but you wanted to take it out, if it was particularly dirty, usually the head of the regular pin is fairly small and could be difficult to get a grip on and to pull out. So what he did was enlarge this pin and give it an hourglass shape so you can get a really good, easy grip to pull it out. And then it is held in place by this pivoting lever. That locks the pin securely in place, and there's no way that it can walk out under recoil. And yet, it remains easy to flip open and pull the cylinder out. So that's an important practical update. The front sight, the barrel has been turned down slightly at the front so that a replacement adjustable, very precise front sight could be added on and sweated and pinned in place. a number of different gunsmiths were involved in actually manufacturing the various elements of this revolver for Keith. His friend Croft, of course, came up with a lot of the ideas, and then R.F. Sedgley, a gunsmith named Houghton, and also O'Mara were involved in various parts of the construction. And you can see things like the cylinder gap is tiny. It is a very closely fit cylinder. Just barely get a little shot of light coming through there. That, of course, helped to improve accuracy by minimizing the jump from the cylinder into the barrel. The trigger in this gun is exquisite. It's very nice and crisp. Not super light, certainly light by anyone's standards, but a fantastic trigger. They redesigned the mainspring slightly as well to improve it. Now, the engraving was actually commissioned by Keith's friend, Croft, who had it done for him after the gun was initially manufactured. And you can see on the bottom here, it's marked Durkee, Oregon. This is the town where Keith was actually living when Croft and Keith were working together, homesteading in Oregon. He's much better known for living in Salmon, Idaho, but that was later in his life. And then the back strap is engraved with his name, Elmer Keith. The grips on the revolver are pretty ornate here. They're made of African elephant ivory, and we have the image here of a Mexican eagle eating a snake, with the reverse side simply plain ivory. It's interesting, in his article on this gun from 1929, Keith describes how the initial set of grips were made from walrus ivory, which in just a couple of months shrunk enough that they would no longer fit on the gun, and he had to have a new set made out of elephant ivory, which would retain its shape, and obviously has done so for the last nearly 100 years. So unlike most engraved guns, revolver number 5 here was Keith's working, daily, standard use handgun for many decades. From 1929, when he first commissioned it to be made, up into the mid-1950s, this was the gun that he used for hunting and self-defense and anything else that he needed a handgun for. By the mid-1950s, his pushing and prodding of the industry to create a .44 Magnum finally had results, and once he got his hands on a .44 Magnum, he stopped using this gun nearly as much, preferring the Magnums. This one, of course, I should have mentioned this earlier, is in .44 Special. That was the cartridge that was available at the time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. There's been a lot written about this particular revolver over nearly the last 100 years now. It's really cool to be able to take an up-close and personal look at it here today. Now, it is up for auction. It could become your revolver number 5 if you would like it. It is appropriately enough lot number 1005 in this upcoming auction. So if you click the link below, that'll jump you straight over to the Julia catalog and look it up as number 1005 and check out the high-resolution pictures, the cataloger's description, and get all the information you need to either place a bid online or come down here in person, get your hands on it, take a look, and then participate live in the auction. Thanks for watching.